In 2014, a security researcher in the UK sat down and typed a single line of code into a terminal. That one line exposed a bug that had been hiding in plain sight for 25 years, a bug sitting on an estimated 500 million servers. Within 1 hour of its public disclosure, machines around the world were being compromised. The Department of Defense was being scanned. Botnets were launching attacks at 1.5 million per day. The vulnerability was called Shellshock, and it lived inside a program most people have never heard of, but that virtually every computer on Earth depends on. That program is Bash, the Bourne Again Shell. It's the command line interface running on every Linux server, every cloud instance, every Docker container, every Mac sold before 2019. It runs on NASA's systems, it literally runs on Mars. And the whole thing was written in 9 months by a high school dropout who accidentally deleted his own source code halfway through. Its maintenance has depended on a single unpaid volunteer for over 30 years. And the licensing war it triggered between the Free Software Foundation and Apple reshaped the entire open source ecosystem. This is the untold story of Bash. It's 1985. Richard Stallman has just founded the Free Software Foundation with a radical mission: recreate every piece of the Unix operating system from scratch and give it away for free. He needs programmers, and the very first person he hires is a 26-year-old high school dropout named Brian Fox. Fox had no degree, no formal credentials, but he'd been programming since childhood, part of an early experiment teaching kids to code using the Logo language. And he was fast. He'd already stunned Stallman by building the GNU info documentation system in a single week. Now Stallman had a problem. Someone had volunteered to write a free replacement for the Bourne shell, the standard command interpreter on every Unix system, but the volunteer produced nothing. Stallman turned to Fox, and Fox's first response was characteristically ambitious. Can't we make a better one? There was one critical constraint. To avoid copyright infringement against AT&T, which owned Unix, the entire shell had to be a cleanroom implementation. Fox had never seen a single line of the original Unix source code, not Bell Labs, not Berkeley's. He had to reverse engineer the behavior of Stephen Bourne's original shell purely from its documentation and observable outputs, replicate every quirk faithfully, and simultaneously fold in the best features of two rival shells. See, the Unix world was split. Stephen Bourne had created the original shell at Bell Labs in 1979, great for scripting, but terrible to use interactively. No command history, no tab completion. So Bill Joy at Berkeley created the C shell, which was wonderful for humans but so broken for programming, a tool utterly inadequate for programming. David Korn tried to merge both at Bell Labs, but his shell was proprietary AT&T software. Nobody could use it freely. Fox's job was to take the best of all three, write it from scratch without looking at any of their code, and give it away for free. Stallman estimated it would take a couple of months. Famous last words. Fox began coding on January 10, 1988. 9 months later, Bash was born. While building Bash, Fox was implementing file globbing, the feature that lets you type .c and match all C source files. He'd created a test file literally named .c in his development directory, then he typed rm.c, intending to delete only that one file. But he hadn't finished implementing quoting yet. The quotes were ignored, the asterisk expanded, and every single .c source file in the directory was deleted. Fox noticed something was wrong when the prompt took too long to come back. Then he realized what had happened. His response? He laughed. Loudly, for a long time. Then he sat down and retyped the entire codebase from memory, over the next 2 days. Think about that. The program that now runs on more computers than any software in history was at one point reconstructed entirely from one person's memory, because the tool he was building wasn't finished enough to protect its own source code. In 1987, Fox drove up the California coast to his new home in Santa Barbara with 2 massive magnetic tapes in the trunk of his car. Those tapes contained the code he'd been writing for the Free Software Foundation. Pieces of what would become the most widely installed software on Earth, bouncing around in the back of someone's car on the Pacific Coast Highway. The name Bash works on 3 levels. It's an acronym, Bourne Again Shell. It's a pun on spiritual rebirth, and it describes what the program does, bashing together the features of 3 rival shells into one. Fox walked up to Stephen Bourne at a conference and handed him a t-shirt. Bourne's response? That sounds great, though he later admitted he'd never actually looked at Bash in detail. Bash was released on June 8, 1989. But what turned it from a useful tool into the most ubiquitous software on the planet was a combination of timing, a lawsuit, and a Finnish college student. In 1991, Linus Torvalds released Linux, and the very first program he announced running on his new kernel was Bash, because the GNU project had been building free Unix tools for years, and Linux was the missing piece, the kernel. Every Linux distribution that followed shipped Bash as its default shell: Debian, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Fedora, all of them. Then AT&T sued the BSD project over Unix code, creating years of legal uncertainty over the only serious alternative to Linux. Developers fled to Linux instead, and Linux meant GNU, and GNU meant Bash. But here's the part nobody talks about. Fox was laid off from the FSF around 1993, and the person who took over was a computer science graduate in Cleveland named Chet Ramey, who had started contributing bug fixes in 1989 after finding Bash promising but buggy. Ramey and Fox met in person exactly once, in 1990. Their entire collaboration ran on email, Unix chat and phone calls, and when Fox moved on, Ramey became the sole maintainer of Bash. He still is. For over 30 years, Chet Ramey has maintained Bash as an unpaid volunteer alongside his full-time job at Case Western Reserve University. Every major release from 2.0 through 5.2 is his work. One person, no salary, no corporate sponsor. He once described it simply, "It's a solo effort. I get great bug reports and occasional code contributions, but virtually all of the development and bug fixing I do myself." The shell that powers every Linux server, every cloud instance, every CI/CD pipeline on Earth. Its continued existence depends on one man's volunteer commitment. That's either the most inspiring or the most terrifying thing about open source. Maybe both. Before we go further, a quick note. This video is co-presented by CodeRabbit, an AI platform redefining how developers write, review, and refine code. September 12, 2014. A Unix administrator named Stefan Chazalos at a UK robotics company is thinking about environment variables. He reasons through how Bash probably handles an obscure feature called function exports, and realizes if it's implemented the simplest way, there's a massive security hole. He's right. When Bash started up, it scanned environment variables for function definitions. But the parser didn't stop after the function ended. It would execute any commands appended after it, meaning anyone who could influence an environment variable could run arbitrary code on the target machine. The bug had been there since 1989, written by Brian Fox himself, 25 years earlier. Chazalos reported it to Chet Ramey, who produced an initial patch in 22 minutes. But the fix was fragile. Public disclosure came on September 24th, and within an hour, machines were being compromised. The vulnerability was named Shellshock. It scored a perfect 10 out of 10 on the severity scale. One security researcher called it an 11 out of 10. An estimated 500 million servers were at risk. Botnets launched attacks at 1.5 million per day. The Pentagon was being scanned. 6 separate security patches were needed in 2 weeks, because every fix kept getting bypassed. And here's what shattered the open source community's confidence. This bug had been sitting in the most widely deployed shell on Earth for a quarter century. Nobody had reviewed the code. There was no version control. Patches were uploaded to an FTP server. No code review process. One person wrote it, and nobody checked. It demolished the famous open source mantra that given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. Turns out, nobody was looking. Apple had made Bash its default shell in 2003. The relationship worked fine, until 2007, when the Free Software Foundation released GPL version 3, a new version of its license with anti-corporate provisions. It required companies shipping GPL software to let users install modified versions on their hardware. It had patent clauses that threatened Apple's portfolio. Apple's response was simple: they stopped updating. When Bash 4.0 shipped under GPL version 3 in 2009, Apple refused to adopt it. For the next decade, every Mac shipped with Bash 3.2, while the rest of the world moved through 6 major versions. It wasn't just Bash. Apple conducted a systematic purge of GPL software from macOS. The numbers are stark: 47 GPL packages in 2007, down to 16 by 2016. GCC was replaced by Clang. Samba was replaced by Apple's own implementation. In 2019, Apple announced ZSH as the default shell in macOS Catalina, officially for its features, but everyone knew the real reason was licensing. ZSH uses a permissive MIT-like license with no strings attached. And here's the cost of that strategy. When Shellshock hit in 2014, Apple had to rush patch a 7-year-old version of Bash. They were slower than every Linux distribution to respond. Their refusal to update had turned a security inconvenience into a security crisis. The irony is sharp. Richard Stallman designed GPL version 3 to protect user freedom. Apple responded by abandoning free software entirely. A high school dropout wrote it in 9 months. He deleted his own source code and laughed. He retyped it from memory in 2 days. He named it after a pun about spiritual rebirth. A volunteer in Cleveland took it over and has maintained it, unpaid, for 30 years. One person, no code review, no corporate backing, just a guy at a university who never left. A 25-year-old bug nearly broke the internet. A licensing war drove the world's most valuable company to purge free software from its operating system. And through all of it, Bash just kept running, on every server, in every container, on every cloud, on Mars. Brian Fox went on to build the first interactive online banking system in the United States. He co-authored a New York Times op-ed with a former CIA director. He co-founded a decentralized VPN company, but none of it eclipsed the thing he built in 9 months at age 28. He said, "I never thought that any piece of software I wrote would have any longevity at all." The blinking cursor he gave the world hasn't stopped blinking since 1989.